Welcome back to Fur Talk. This is our second episode, and this episode I want to kind of expand on some of the themes from last episode. Now, I did pose a question at the end of episode 1, and I'll be giving my answer to that question at the end of this one and posing the next one. Now, one of the things that I talked about last time was making a list of what you're looking for in a dog or a puppy. What are the things that are your criteria? I gave you some examples. So this one is geared towards people who want to be more active with their dogs. Through my many years of training, I have run across people on a fairly regular basis that have made the comment, I just want my dog to be a dog, whatever that means. I'm sure they just simply mean they don't want to do organized things with their dogs. They want their dog to just pat around and bark around and that sort of thing and just be left to its own devices, I guess. But then there are other people, a lot of people, me included, who like to do more organized things with their dogs. And it could be competition, yes. I don't know if I mentioned last time or not, but I have 2 Shelties right now. I've had a whole range of different types of dogs in my life. You might hear some clicking in the background. That's Hank. That's my dog. The other dog is Autumn. That's my husband's dog. Hank is a bi-black Sheltie, and Autumn is a sable and white Sheltie. Well, Hank's older brother, same mother and father, a different breeding, is a world-class agility champion, and we cheer him on constantly. We are very proud of him. But that's not what Hank and I do. Hank and I do things that are completely different, and I've done completely different things with other dogs in my life. Some of these things that I mentioned can be done in your backyard or at your local park. Some of them, depending on the activity and the size of your dog, can be done inside your house or inside your apartment. I have recommended a lot of this stuff to people, and when I go into more detail in future episodes about several of these, the more common ones, I'll mention how you can adapt these to your backyard or inside your house. They don't have to be out in public competing against other dogs. They can simply be a way of the two of you connecting on a different level. So let me give you a list of some of them, and I'll probably talk about some of these as I go along. Now, this is not an all-inclusive list. There are a lot of things I'm leaving out. There's also variations of these that I'm leaving out. There's, for instance, hunting. There are so many different categories that can be put under hunting that I'm not going to list them all. But if you have a dog who does some of these things, and I don't specifically list what your dog does, or you want to expand on something that I list, mention it in the comments, because some of these I've never competed in. For instance, Shih Tzu. I've never competed in it. I've had friends who've done it, but I've never competed in it myself. So I'd love to hear what all's involved in it. The first dog competition that most people think of is conformation. That's what you see on TV. If you've never been to a dog show, a lot of people see it as a beauty contest. It's not. It's not. What conformation originally started out as was a way to evaluate dogs as far as what they were bred to do. The dogs are compared to each other based on their breed standard. And what do I mean by that? A Sheltie has a different breed standard compared to a Cocker Spaniel or a Newfoundland. They're all going to be completely different. It's because what was the dog bred to do? And that's something you're going to hear me come back to over and over and over. What was the dog bred to do? And I'll talk about this also in relation to mixed breeds. Though mixed breeds do not compete in conformation shows, these dogs were bred for specific purpose or purposes. So you're going to have them with different structures, different things. For instance, some dogs have longer faces. That's for a reason. Some dogs have shorter faces. That's for a reason. Some have longer legs. Some have shorter legs. Some have longer, thicker tails. Some have short, stumpy tails. Some have upright ears. Some have tipped ears. It goes on and on and on. And these are things that are looked at whenever the judge goes over the dog. You'll see the judge running their hands down the body, and they're checking for structure, angulation. Is the dog able to perform the task that it was bred to do? If this dog was bred to pull a cart to market with produce in it, can the dog physically pull something that heavy? If this dog was bred to hunt at high speed using their eyesight, is their head the right wedge shape, the right angulation to get the right view? Are their legs long and proportionate? Is their musculature such that they can handle the sustained bursts of speed? And once you find the best one of each breed, then you go on to find the best one in each group, because the dogs are grouped together by function. You've got the herding group, you've got the sporting group, you've got the hound group, and so on and so forth. Each group has their own set of things that they do. For instance, a terrier has a completely different job than a herding dog does. Though I will say right now, any dog can potentially do almost any of the different jobs. It's just that the ones that were bred for it tend to do it better. I will say, though, I will give this caveat. Many years ago, I used to go into the North Georgia mountains in October of each year for herding instinct test. And we went to this one gentleman's farm who had border collies, and he was amazing. He was absolutely amazing. But anybody could come. And a couple of the best first-time herders I ever saw were a pair of standard poodles. Yes, standard poodles. No, standard poodles are not just fluffy dogs. Standard poodles are hunting dogs. They are water dogs. That's why they have the funny little haircuts, is to keep their joints warm in cold water. They're French hunting dogs. They have a purpose. Okay, enough with the confirmation. Let's move on. Obedience. Obedience is tough. I'll tell you that right now. Obedience is tough, but it's supposed to be tough. This shows that your dog understands commands and can execute them as flawlessly as possible. Sits, downs, stays, heels. There's all kinds of different things in this. And they have to be able to execute these, not only execute them, but execute them off leash in a highly distracted area. It includes nose work. It includes all kinds of stuff. It's amazing to watch these dogs. If you don't understand what's going on, it gets to be a little confusing. But once you understand exactly what's going on and the purpose behind it, then it's very exacting. It's very interesting. Next up is rally. Rally obedience is one that I have titled in several times. And this is one that I really enjoy. I have gone out of my way to teach this class. I have the signs and the cones and everything for it sitting right now on my front porch, ready to put out for my next time working on it. This is one that can be done inside of a house, inside of an apartment. It can be done in your backyard. It can be done at the park. I had a friend who would go out into the cul-de-sac in front of her house each morning before work and would do 2 or 3 signs, and that would be her training for the day. Just 2 or 3 signs. She would do them a couple of times, and that was it. While she was harnessing her dog up, her husband would go out and set up the signs, and then she would go out and run through them 2 or 3 times, and then come back in. And I'm not sure if they would do them again in the evening, but she did them every morning. But she just did them just for her and her dog. That was it. She didn't do them for competition, though she did compete. She did compete once, but she saw that wasn't really so much for her. She enjoyed it more just doing it in front of her house. So that's what she did. This is similar to obedience, but not completely, in that you do things like sits and downs and weaving through cones and things like that. But it's also a little bit like agility in that you go from station to station to station. You go from one thing to the next thing to the next thing in a set pattern. And you get that little pattern map just before the competition, and you get to do a walkthrough of it. But you don't have to compete. You can print these signs off on several websites for free, and you can get cones. I got my cones at the dollar store, and I got some very inexpensive sign holders like you use to put yard sale signs on. For mine, I've also gotten extra of the cones and put my signs on the cones. I've done several different ways of doing this. You just have to have a way of propping up the sign so that you see what it is and then setting the cones up to match. You can do it down your hallway. You can do it around your living room. I did it inside of a retail store because one of my last training jobs was in a pet supply retail store, and I did it up and down the aisles in that store, and it was a lot of fun. We had a blast. Agility. Everybody knows agility. That's the one where they run and they jump and they go through tunnels and they weave around poles and all that. They go up and down A-frames. It's fast. It's fun. It's exciting to watch. It's exciting to compete in. I have competed in it briefly, but I was a little bit too busy with rally and confirmation to continue on with it. I do cheer for Hank's brother every chance I get. I will say a couple of the cutest runs that I've seen. One was a rough collie, and the little girl bringing the rough collie through the course couldn't have been more than 5 or 6 years old. The dog was taller than she was almost, but they made it through. They didn't win, but they made it through. And that was the important thing. They did the course. They enjoyed it. They had fun. The dog listened to everything she said, went in the correct directions. Whenever she would point at something or say a word, the dog went where it was supposed to. And they completed the course. Another cute one that I saw was a basset hound. That basset hound was so clunky and funny, but that dog made it through. Now, I will say the dog did knock down a bar, but not with its legs, with its ears. Its ears dragging the ground, drug one of the bars off of one of the jumps. Now, before you get upset, the jumps are based on the height of the dog at the withers or the shoulders. So shorter dogs, regardless of how long they are or how bulky they are or how much they weigh, shorter dogs compete together. Taller dogs compete together. They have different height standards, and you can look up the different heights for each one. And it's based on whether you go through AKC or any of the other different groups that do these different competitions. They have their own set of rules. They're similar, but they're different. Now, how can you do this one? Okay, you can do this one indoors with using, this is something I've recommended to a lot of my people with smaller dogs. Take a stack of books, a couple of stacks of books, and lay a broom handle across it for a jump. You can use, remember how we used to do the forts using chairs and blankets and that sort of thing? Well, you can do something similar for tunnels. You can also use pillows propped against each other for tunnels. Before I go any further with this one, I will say, do not have your dog jumping consistently over belly height until they're at least 12 months old, and you talk to your vet first. Reason for it being, puppies with growing bones and developing joints, you don't want to put too much stress on it too young. An occasional jump is one thing, and stepping over something belly height just to get the idea of going over something is one thing, but consistently jumping over something higher than belly height, don't do it. Don't take that risk until they're a year old. It's not worth the risk. You can lay the jump down on the ground, or you can raise it up to belly height without too much trouble because they're just going to step over it anyway, or just do a little hop over it. But don't start raising that height up until you get a clearance at a year old from the vet. Now, How can you do this in the backyard? PVC pipe. PVC pipe you get from a home improvement store, Home Depot, Lowe's, Ace Hardware, you name it, and you're going to be able to get PVC pipe cheap. It's not expensive. And there are a lot of tutorials here on YouTube. There are tutorials on quite a few websites. You can Google it. There are tutorials all over the place on how to make things for backyard agility. Now, one thing that I made for puppies is I took, I want to say it was a 3-inch, possibly 3-inch piece of PVC pipe I got off of a construction site. Ask first, don't just go in and grab. But they use it for drainage and that sort of thing, for coming out of apartments, going into sewers. But it's only about, I'd say 12 inches wide, 12-inch cutoff piece. And then I took a 2x12, about 4 foot long, and I screwed the pipe onto the piece of wood off center, so that when you turn it, so that the pipe side is down, one side of the wood touches the ground always. And then I painted it and prettied it up and everything, which you don't have to do, but get the splinters off. That is a beginner teeter. When you start working with puppies on teeters, which this is a fun activity for them actually, and I'll talk a lot about fun activities for puppies in a future episode. I have got so many things planned. Don't worry, you're going to have tons of stuff. But when they first start going across it, hold the teeter so it doesn't slap down, or else it's going to spook them. Do a controlled descent as they walk across it. Okay, enough with that one. As far as taking things to the park to run agility, we'll talk about in a future episode how you can make a long line without having to pay a fortune for it, but put your dog on a long line unless you're in a fenced-in area. And the PVC pieces can come apart. And you know what I did? Whenever I would get a folding camp chair and the chair would eventually tear up, disintegrate, whatever out in the weather, I would use the bag that they come in and slide my pieces down into that, my agility pieces, so that one bag would have one jump, another bag would have another jump, and so forth. And I could just pull the bags out and then assemble the jumps, very quickly and have them ready to go. Next up is herding. Herding is simply moving livestock from one place to another. And as I mentioned earlier, a couple of the best herders that I saw were a couple of standard poodles. I've also seen a Rottweiler do herding. I've seen, of course, a whole range of shepherds, sheepdogs, that sort of thing do herding. So any dog can do herding. Herding is simply moving of livestock, basically like hunting, only without the bite. You curtail the bite. Now, there are some breeds, for instance, heelers, who will nip, but they don't bite. They nip. Then you've got dock diving. That's a fairly new sport. That's a lot of fun to watch. I love dock diving, though none of my dogs would ever do it. They consider you ask them to get into water, and it's the biggest insult you could possibly give them. And it's simply running and jumping off of the dock and seeing who can go the furthest. I remember when it first started up, it was being tore up by labs and dogs like that you would expect. But from what I understand, lately, the ones that have really been tearing it up have been like the Whippets. The Whippets have really been tearing up dock diving. They've been making some outrageous jumps. So if you're interested in dogs jumping off of a dock and seeing how far they can go, this is the one for you. Disc dog. Frisbees. Throwing a frisbee for a dog. This is great. There are all kinds of competitions and variations of this one. Everything from distance to the number to dancing with them during it. This one's a lot of fun. I've been to disc dog competitions before, and these are fun to watch, even if you don't compete. All this one takes is grab a couple of frisbees for 50 cents, $1 each, and go outside and throw some frisbees. And yes, they have little frisbees for little dogs. Lure coursing. Lure coursing's one I've never seen in person, but I have seen a lot on videos of. And this is one that is amazing to me. They take a line and they run it between 2 points, and then they run it around different stoppers in between, different posts in between. And what they do is they tie something similar to a plastic bag, just a white shopping bag, onto the line, and then they reel it through fast, and the dog chases the bag. And dogs love this. They think this is amazing. They get to chase this bag. This one is, you can get just as expensive or just as cheap as you want to on it. Whenever I go over this one in more detail in the future, and I try and hunt down the rules for it and everything, I'll try and put some links to maybe some of the equipment. And this goes for all of these. I'll try and put down some links in for some of the equipment. But I've known people just to use fishing line and use a fishing pole and reel the bag through with like they're reeling in a fish. Musical freestyle. Musical freestyle is basically dancing with your dog to music. Just that simple. Now, it's not that simple. It requires a lot of training, a lot of learning commands, and all that sort of stuff. But it's dancing with your dog. And there are a lot of you out there who love to dance to music. So include your dog in. Let's see, Schitzen. I've mentioned Schitzen a little while ago. I don't know that much about it. I've had friends who've done it. I've never done it myself. But it includes several different things, including nose work, protection, obedience. There's a lot of different things involved in this. Carting, pulling a cart to market. Carts come in different sizes. Hank's mother can cart. They usually pull a cart through the 4th of July parades. Weight pull. That's simply putting a harness on a dog, taking a sled, putting weights of different types, and seeing how much your dog can pull. Now, don't just do this straight off and expect your dog to pull a heavy weight. You have to condition your dog first. Keep that in mind. You have to, and for most of these, you have to condition your dog first. You don't want to injure your dog. But start with lighter weights and work your way up. We will talk about this one more. Mushing. This is the one that whenever you think of dogs in Alaska, this is what you think of. Dog sleds. Racing. Of course, everyone knows greyhound racing, but there's also, has anyone seen a wiener dog race? That's dachshund racing. Those are funny. I love watching wiener dog races. Hunting, we mentioned before, that can come in any number of different things, including but not limited to nose work, where they go out and sniff down the prey, coursing, like I mentioned with the lure coursing, only with actual prey. You've got field work, and including pointing and retrieving, things like that. Think about your pointers that point where the game is. Retrievers, like your labs that go out into the water and bring the duck back to shore, things like that. You've got earth dog and barn dog. These are mostly your terriers, but can be other dogs. It's where I've never been to one of these competitions. I've never competed in it. I'll tell you, any of these I've never done straight up. I've never done it myself, but I've heard people talk about it and I've read things on it. This is where they take a rodent of some variety and put it in a cage. Like you would keep it as a pet. And they will take that cage and hide it in a barn, or they will hide it down in a hole or something like that. This keeps the rodent, usually a rat, it keeps them contained, but also keeps them safe. And they turn the dog loose and they see how long it takes for them to find it. Listening to it, smelling for it, just generally hunting it down. In the barn, they'll take it and hide it somewhere in a pile of bales of hay, that sort of thing. Tracking. Now, this does not necessarily have to be after prey. Think about the dogs that sniff down missing kids, things like that, or sniff out criminals, that sort of thing. That's your tracking. Flyball. Now, flyball is a lot of fun. Flyball is a relay race. And with flyball, now I have not competed and I have not seen it in person, but I have loved watching all the videos I've seen it. With flyball, you have a team of 4 dogs. Usually one is a shorter dog. Think of it in terms of 3 border collies and a Jack Russell. And The shorter dogs is the one they set the height of the jumps against. So that's your height dog. And what they do is the dogs race down one at a time over 4 jumps. When they get down to the end, there is this box with a ball in it, and they hit the box, grab the ball, turn around, and race back. When they get back across the line, the next dog goes, same thing, down to the end, hit the box, grab the ball, turn around, and come back. And it's a relay race. And, of course, the fastest team wins. This is fast, this is furious, and it's a lot of fun. Now, there's more dog competitions than just those. Those are just skimming the surface. And like I said, I'm going to get more into each of these as time goes on so that you can get more ideas. Now, a lot of these, you don't have to be physically fit. I've seen people in wheelchairs do some of these. Not limited to, but including conformation, obedience, rally, herding, dock diving, lure coursing. Let's see, going back down my list here, I've seen disabled people do karting and weight pull. I haven't seen it, but I can imagine being able to do mushing as long as the equipment is set up for it. Racing, I'm sure hunting you could be able to do it. Earth dog, tracking, flyball. See, a lot of these, you don't have to be physically fit, or you could be disabled and still be able to do them. So don't let your physical abilities or disabilities limit you on what you want to do. If you're not competing on a national level, I don't see any reason why you couldn't train your dog to do agility. As long as you can walk a few steps and kind of point towards, and you'll see when people run agility with their dogs, they will use verbal cues and physical cues and point towards things. For instance, they will point towards a jump and they'll either say right or jump or things like that if you listen to what they're saying, depending on how they train their dog. As long as you're able to move some, I don't see any reason why you wouldn't be able to get out there and do a small course of your own out in your backyard or at the park. So don't let things limit you unless you just want to limit yourself. Some of these things you can do indoors. Some of these things you can do in your backyard, some at the park. But if this is something you're interested in, go to some of these competitions, watch them. Watch what happens, watch how they do it. And we'll talk about how to find some of these competitions. But go to some of these competitions and watch it. Ask questions. Don't be afraid to talk to people. Don't talk to them as they're getting ready to go up. And as for confirmation, don't talk to them before they go into the show ring. Wait until after they come out of the show ring and ask them if you can talk to them at their groom area. A lot of times they'll say yes because people like to talk about their dogs. They don't mind it at all, especially if they see somebody who might seriously be interested in their breed or in going into confirmation. They highly encourage. In fact, they even have a junior handlers division to encourage kids to get into it. Now, for the last time's question of the day, I asked, if someone were to come to you with this particular scenario and ask you what breed of dog you would recommend for them, which would you recommend? And the scenario I gave you was a single mother, 2 sons, approximately 8 to 10 years old. One is very athletic, outgoing, outdoorsy, plays sports, rides bikes, constantly busy. The other one, indoors, likes his computer, likes video games, likes to read, that sort of thing, a bit quieter. Mother wants an easy keeper, one that will listen, but she's not constantly having to train. What dog would you recommend? Or what questions would you ask to further decide what dog to recommend? And I came up with a couple of questions and 4 breeds. And if you put your response, give your reasoning for it. And I'll give my reasonings for it. And then I'll give you your next question of the day. My questions would be, first of all, how do you feel about grooming? Do you mind a lot of grooming? Do you want a dog with absolutely no grooming? Do you want a dog that you have to take to a groomer? Do you want a dog who If you brush it once or twice a week, all's good. Or would you rather have a dog with absolutely no grooming whatsoever except for the occasional bath and nail trim? Then the next question is size. Do you feel more comfortable with a larger dog, or do you feel more comfortable with a smaller dog? Now, my recommendations depend on the answers of that. The first recommendation is the first one I usually recommend to people like this, and that's a beagle. A beagle requires very little grooming, a bath every so often, keep the nails trimmed. Make sure you keep the ears cleaned out because they're floppy ears. Very simple. Of course, teeth brushing, your normal stuff. Now, beagles, instead of barking, they bay, so you got to get used to that. But beagles are easy keepers. They're fairly intelligent, but they don't need constant training. And while they're very active for the active child, they're perfectly fine to lay on the foot of the bed with the other one. They are fairly small. They're compact. They're very good with kids. The next one is my breed, Sheltie. Now, Shelties do require brushing at least a couple of times a week. If you can't hit anywhere else, at least hit under the armpits and behind the ears and the butts. So they do need to go to the groomer maybe once every 3 or 4 months. Take them to a groomer, have them good and groomed up. Now, they do shed twice a year. They do a heavy shedding in the spring and a smaller shedding in the fall. They are very much one family person. If they see you as family, you're fine. If they don't see you as family, they're very hesitant around you. So the older kids' friends, once the puppy gets used to the friends, will see the friends as family. So that's not a problem there. And Shelties are bred to go out and run hard, but still come home and crash. They're border collie light, I like to say. They're workaholics while they're working, but when they're done working, they don't keep working and keep working. They crash. And they're perfectly fine just laying at your feet or laying on your bed. I've got 2 Shelties laying at my feet right now. Now, you have to keep in mind the fact that they bark. They do need a bit of grooming, but they're good dogs. Now, if you want to go a little bit larger and you don't mind a bit more grooming, in other words, you have to go to the groomers every couple of months, standard poodle. Yes, standard poodle. I mentioned standard poodle earlier. They are actually hunting dogs. They are French water dogs. That's why they have the funny haircuts. Those haircuts keep their joints warm. But as long as you go through a good breeder and keep your dog in a basic puppy cut, then the dogs are great with kids. Now, you're going to run into problems with some breeds, and it's not the breed's fault. It's the people who bred the dog's fault. Poodles were very, very popular at one point. This also goes for Dobermans. It goes for your pit bulls. This goes for your Cocker Spaniels. This goes for, I can go on and on listing breeds. Jack Russell's got this way for a while. People see a popular breed, and backyard breeders will go out and overbreed that popular breed to make money without keeping in mind temperament. That's why I say certain breeds you absolutely have to go through a top breeder because they breed for temperament, and they also match their puppies by temperament. Okay? Now, if you have a good standard poodle from a good breeder that's got a good temperament, these are excellent dogs. They will go and go and go and go. And they will also come in and crash. But they do need a lot more as far as grooming goes. And because they're your second most intelligent breed of dog, they're also going to need more training. They can learn more tricks. I mean, it doesn't have to be formal training. Once they get their basics down, sit, down, stay, leave it, come. Once they get their basics down, then they can learn all kinds of awesome tricks. And this could be something that you have your kids do. Have your kids do the training with them. Have your kids teach them tricks. Have your kids go on the internet and research tricks and how to teach them. And I'll go through some tricks and how to teach them. Tricks are easy. Tricks are fun once you have your basic commands down. Now, the final breed that I would recommend, if you want to go large, would be a Golden Retriever. Golden Retrievers have a very sweet temperament as long as you go through a good breeder. These are very popular dogs, so they do get bred a lot. So make sure you find a reputable breeder for this one. And these dogs are similar with, well, they're between a beagle and a sheltie as far as grooming goes. They do need brushing from time to time. Keep in mind the breeches, which is the back of the legs. Keep in mind the underarms, and keep in mind behind the ears. Those are your regular friction areas on most dogs that need to be groomed. Those are the areas, if you can't brush anywhere else on your dog, get those areas right there. I'm going to see if I can find a couple of my groomer friends who I can interview for a future episode. That's a good idea. I'll call Shelby or Natalie. Once you take care of those areas once a week, then they don't really need trimming or haircuts per se. They just need a bath every so often. Some people say that the dogs are too big for them to bathe them, so they'll take them to a groomer, or you can just bathe them in a kid's swimming pool in the backyard. That works great in the summertime. Now in the wintertime, you might want to splurge a little bit for a groom, especially before the holidays, that sort of thing. But they generally just need a bath, a brush, ears cleaned, teeth brushed, nails done, that sort of thing. Fairly simple. So those are the ones that I would recommend and my reasoning behind them. Now, which dogs would you have recommended? And do you agree or disagree with my 4 choices and my 2 questions? Now, today's question is going back to the dog sports. The last place I trained at was in a college town. And so I had this scenario come up quite often. You have a young man or young lady come to town to go to college. Most colleges, the first year, they live in dorms. But by the second year, they're usually more than ready to get out into their own apartment. Sometimes they move in with roommates. Sometimes they move into studio apartments themselves. They're in class at weird times. They work generally, but they're also very active. And I'm talking about the ones that are active, not specifically the ones who, when they are out of class and when they're not working, that they sit in the library the whole time, which would have been me. But the ones who go out and they run or they play sports or that sort of thing, and they want an active dog. They want a dog that's fairly low maintenance, easy to train, and very active. What breed would you recommend? Or what questions would you ask to further narrow it down? Put your response in the comments and let's see what everyone comes up with. What dog can we recommend to someone like this? And it might be someone like this who's listening in, who's interested to know. Now keep in mind, when we recommend these things, we're not necessarily recommending purebred, but what breed combinations as well. Because remember, for mixed breed dogs, such as rescues, you have to know what goes into the dog to be able to know what the dog needs and how well that dog is going to fit with you. And with most of these dog sports, with the exception of conformation, most of them, especially through AKC, you can run rescue dogs, shelter dogs, mixed breeds, not a problem. They do have a specific registration just for these types of dogs, and we will talk about those registrations at some point. The only thing being, they have to be spayed or neutered, which they're going to be spayed or neutered if you get them from a rescue anyway, so not a problem. Which breed or breed combinations would you recommend someone in this situation look for? What are they looking for? And if you want to include it in, it's up to you. Which breeds would you stay away from? I mean, think about my story about the agility and the basset hound. Most dogs can do most things. Which ones would you not recommend? I mean, someone would have said, don't use a basset hound on an agility course, and I've seen someone do it, and they had a blast doing it. So there goes that one. So let me hear what you have to say down in the comments, and I will see you next time.